Before America knew his name, before newspapers debated his power, before Standard Oil transformed an industry, there was only a boy, counting every penny he owned. History remembers John Davison Rockefeller as one of the richest men who ever lived. But wealth was never the beginning of his story. The beginning was discipline, a quiet belief that every small decision mattered, that every dollar carried responsibility, and that success, once earned, should serve a purpose greater than itself. Those simple ideas would build an empire, change American business forever, and leave behind a legacy, still debated today. John Davison Rockefeller was born on July 8, 1839, in the rural town of Richford, New York. His parents could hardly have been more different. His father, William, was a traveling salesman who spent long periods away from home and became a controversial figure. His mother, Eliza, was calm, deeply religious, and unwavering in her principles. She taught her son to work honestly, live modestly, keep careful account of what he earned, and never forget those less fortunate. Long before John understood business, his mother was teaching him something far more valuable: character. As a boy, John earned small amounts of money, raising turkeys, selling goods, and taking on odd jobs. But earning money was only the beginning. He carefully recorded every cent he earned, every cent he spent, and every cent he saved. To most children, it was only arithmetic. To John, it was discipline made visible. The small ledger on his desk held only a few numbers, yet within those pages, the habits that would one day help shape an empire were already beginning to form. At 16, John accepted a position as an assistant bookkeeper in Cleveland. The salary was modest. The work demanded patience. Every invoice, every ledger, every calculation strengthened the habits he had learned as a child. Years later, he would still remember that first job as one of the most important moments of his life, not because it made him wealthy, but because it gave him a foundation. He was learning that great businesses were not built on luck, but on discipline, repeated every single day. As America entered a new industrial age, a new resource began reshaping the nation: oil. Thousands rushed to find it beneath the ground. Rockefeller looked beyond the wells. He believed the future belonged to those who could refine oil more efficiently, transport it more reliably, and deliver it more consistently than anyone else. It was a simple idea, quiet, practical, almost invisible, yet that single insight would become the first stone in the foundation of one of the most influential business empires in modern history. By the early 1860s, America was gripped by an oil boom across Pennsylvania. Fortunes seemed to rise almost overnight. Thousands chased the excitement of striking oil. Rockefeller remained remarkably calm. He believed the greatest opportunity was not beneath the earth, but above it. Not in finding oil, but in transforming it into a product people could trust. While others pursued the next discovery, he pursued something different: reliability. In 1863, Rockefeller invested in his first oil refinery near Cleveland. The young industry was unpredictable. Prices swung wildly. Many businesses expanded too quickly, then disappeared just as fast. Rockefeller refused to build his future on speculation. He focused on what he could control: lower costs, better quality, careful planning. The habits that had once filled a small ledger in the hands of a boy were now shaping every decision he made. In 1870, Rockefeller and his partners founded the Standard Oil Company. Their ambition was not simply to grow larger, it was to build a business that customers could depend on. Every barrel was refined to a consistent standard. Every process was measured. Every unnecessary expense was questioned. For Rockefeller, efficiency was never just about saving money. It was the foundation of lasting success. Rockefeller believed that great fortunes were built through countless small improvements. Waste became useful products. Transportation became more organized. Operations became more efficient. Each change seemed modest on its own. Together, they transformed Standard Oil into one of the fastest-growing companies in America. It was not one brilliant decision that fueled the company's rise. It was thousands of decisions, made with discipline. As Standard Oil expanded, admiration grew. So did concern. Customers welcomed reliable products and lower prices. Competitors watched as one company grew stronger with every passing year. Rockefeller believed he was bringing order to a chaotic industry. But others began to ask a different question. Should one company hold so much influence? The questions were growing louder. Standard Oil continued to expand at remarkable speed. More refineries joined the company. Pipelines began replacing slower and more expensive methods of transportation. Storage facilities, rail connections, and distribution networks were brought together into a single, carefully managed system. Rockefeller believed that every part of the process mattered. The more efficiently oil moved, the stronger the business became. An industry once defined by uncertainty was beginning to operate with the discipline of a system. Standard Oil was more than a company. It became a promise of consistent quality. At a time when the quality of kerosene could vary greatly, from one producer to another, Standard Oil delivered a product customers learned to trust. Its reputation spread. Demand increased. Costs continued to fall. By the late 1870s, the company had become the dominant force in American oil refining. Efficiency was no longer simply a competitive advantage. It had become the foundation of an empire. As Standard Oil grew, independent refiners faced an increasingly difficult choice. Some accepted partnerships. Some sold their businesses. Others struggled to compete with a company whose scale and lower operating costs were becoming harder and harder to match. To Rockefeller, consolidation brought stability to a rapidly growing industry. But to many of his critics, it looked very different. They saw the gradual disappearance of competition. The same achievements that inspired admiration were beginning to attract suspicion. In 1882, Standard Oil adopted a new legal structure known as a trust. It brought dozens of affiliated companies under unified management, making the growing business easier to coordinate. To Rockefeller, it was an organizational solution. To much of the public, it represented something very different, a symbol of corporate power on a scale America had never seen before. The debate over Standard Oil was no longer simply about business. It had become a national conversation. By the end of the 19th century, John Rockefeller stood at the head of one of the most influential business organizations in the world. His methods had transformed an industry. His success had reshaped American commerce. But extraordinary power rarely escapes public scrutiny. Investigative journalists began examining Standard Oil's business practices. Lawmakers started asking whether any company should hold such extraordinary influence. For years, Rockefeller had focused on building his empire in relative silence. Now, the entire nation was turning its attention toward the man who had built it. By the 1880s, Standard Oil had become one of the most influential companies in America. Its network stretched across refineries, pipelines, railroads, and distribution systems. What had begun as a carefully managed business was now helping shape an entire industry. Rockefeller rarely appeared in public, yet the larger Standard Oil became, the harder it was to ignore the man behind it. To many Americans, Standard Oil represented progress, reliable products, lower prices, greater efficiency. They believed Rockefeller had brought order to an industry once defined by waste and uncertainty. But others saw something very different. They questioned whether any one company should possess such extraordinary influence over an industry so important. The same achievements that inspired admiration were now giving rise to growing public concern. As criticism intensified, investigative journalists turned their attention toward Standard Oil. Among them was Ida Tarbell. She had grown up in an oil-producing region deeply affected by the transformation of the industry. For years, she researched the rise of Standard Oil. Her articles were read across the country and helped shape public opinion. They did more than examine a corporation. They challenged the methods through which one of America's greatest business empires had been built. The debate surrounding Standard Oil was no longer only about oil. America itself was changing. Factories were growing larger. Railroads connected distant cities. Powerful corporations were transforming the nation's economy. And people began asking a much broader question: how much influence should any private company hold over the marketplace? Rockefeller had become the face of a debate that reached far beyond his own business. For decades, Rockefeller had concentrated on building one of the most efficient business organizations in the world. He remained largely out of the public spotlight, even as criticism of Standard Oil continued to grow. Journalists kept investigating. Lawmakers paid closer attention. Public pressure continued to build. The company remained powerful, but for the first time, its greatest challenge would not come from competitors. It would come from the law. In 1890, the United States enacted the Sherman Antitrust Act. Its purpose was straightforward. Economic success would continue to be celebrated, but no company, regardless of its size, would stand above the law. For years, enforcement remained uncertain. Yet one company stood at the center of the national debate: Standard Oil. Federal investigators spent years examining the company's business practices. The legal battle became one of the most closely watched cases in the nation. Supporters argued that Standard Oil had lowered prices, improved quality, and brought stability to a rapidly growing industry. Critics argued that its enormous scale and extraordinary influence had weakened meaningful competition. The case was no longer simply about one corporation. It had become a debate over the balance between economic freedom and corporate power. On May 15, 1911, the Supreme Court of the United States reached its decision. Standard Oil had violated the Sherman Antitrust Act. The company was ordered to separate into independent businesses. The ruling became a defining moment in American legal and business history. An empire built over decades would survive, but no longer as one. Many believed the breakup of Standard Oil would mark the end of Rockefeller's financial influence. Instead, history unfolded differently. Because Rockefeller held substantial ownership in the newly independent companies, the value of his investments continued to grow. In the years that followed, contemporary observers widely regarded him as America's first billionaire. The empire had been divided. Its founder's fortune had not. History often carries its greatest surprises in unexpected directions. By the time of the Supreme Court's decision, Rockefeller had already stepped away from the daily management of Standard Oil. The legal battle closed the defining chapter of his business career, yet it did not define the rest of his life. For decades, he had been known as the man who built one of the greatest business empires in history. Now, another question stood before him. What should a man do after he has earned more wealth than he could ever hope to spend? Long before the Supreme Court's ruling, Rockefeller had gradually stepped away from the daily operations of Standard Oil. The business that had defined so much of his life no longer required his constant attention. Another mission was beginning to take shape. No longer how to build greater wealth, but how to put that wealth to lasting use. For Rockefeller, success carried responsibility, and responsibility demanded more than accumulation. It demanded purpose. Rockefeller believed that lasting philanthropy required more than generosity. It required careful planning. He sought to support work that could address problems at their source. His giving strengthened universities, advanced medical research, improved public health, and expanded educational opportunity. Rather than focusing only on immediate needs, he invested in institutions designed to create lasting change. It was an approach that would influence modern philanthropy for generations to come. Rockefeller's philanthropy helped establish and strengthen institutions whose influence would extend far beyond his own lifetime. The University of Chicago grew into one of the world's leading universities. The Rockefeller Institute for Medical Research became a center for scientific discovery. The Rockefeller Foundation supported education, medical research, and public health initiatives in many parts of the world. His fortune was no longer measured only by what it earned, but also by the opportunities it helped create. Many of those institutions continue to shape education, science, and public health to this day. Away from public debate, Rockefeller remained a disciplined and remarkably private man. The habits formed in childhood never truly disappeared. Careful planning, faith, routine, quiet reflection. The businessman who had spent decades building an empire now devoted much of his time to family and philanthropy. The small ledger that had once recorded what he earned, what he spent, and what he saved had become a symbol of something much larger. Not simply financial success, but a lifelong commitment to using wealth with purpose and responsibility. Even in his later years, the debates surrounding John Rockefeller never fully disappeared. Neither did the influence of his philanthropy. To some, he remained the architect of modern corporate power. To others, he became one of history's most influential philanthropists. Perhaps Both perspectives reveal part of a more complex truth, because history rarely remembers a remarkable life from only one perspective. On May 23, 1937, John Rockefeller died at the age of 97. During his lifetime, America had transformed from a young agricultural nation into one of the world's great industrial powers. Few individuals left a deeper mark on that transformation. The man who once counted every penny had helped shape an era that would influence the modern world for generations. Nearly a century later, the name Rockefeller still carries remarkable weight. For some, it recalls Standard Oil. For others, it represents universities, medical research, public health, and philanthropy. His name became more than a family name. It became part of the story of modern capitalism itself. Was John Rockefeller a visionary entrepreneur who brought discipline and efficiency to a young industry? Or was he a symbol of the risks that arise when economic power becomes too concentrated? History has never offered a simple answer. Perhaps it never will, because the people who change the world rarely fit comfortably into a single judgment. In the end, the image that remains is not the empire, not the courtroom, not even the fortune. It is a young boy carefully writing numbers into a small ledger. The world around him changed. His businesses changed. History changed. But one habit never did. Discipline. The habit that shaped a boy, built an empire, and ultimately helped define a legacy. John Rockefeller accumulated extraordinary wealth. He transformed an industry. He inspired admiration. He invited criticism. And he left behind institutions that continue to influence education, science, and public health. His story was never only about money. It was about discipline, responsibility, power, purpose, and an enduring question that belongs not only to Rockefeller, but to all of us. What do we choose to leave behind when our own story reaches its end? Every fortune begins with a decision. Every legacy is shaped by the choices that follow. John Rockefeller answered those questions in his own way. History continues to debate whether those answers were enough. Perhaps that is exactly why his story still matters today. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the life of John Rockefeller. If you enjoy cinematic stories that explore the lives behind history, subscribe to Story Reverie for more unforgettable stories. Until next time, thank you for watching.